Aloha and welcome to Phantasmagoria, reflections of the light and shadow of a woman who lives on the skinny branches of life. That's me, in case you haven't noticed. So a lot of these pieces I've studied. I love writing. I am a major, passionate, creative writer, and I really have a style that goes all over the place. And I studied with some really great teachers. I studied with Ivy Kaller, was that her name? And Jasmine. I've written memoirs, chapters with Jasmine. And I had a wonderful opportunity to be at Esalen once with Cy Safransky from the San Francisco Sun, where for 3 days he gave us assignments. The story I'm going to read first is one of my favorites. And the assignment was to tell a story from a certain period of life that everyone in your family would have known and seen, and that you're going to tell your perspective, and then somewhere stick in about somebody else's perspective. So this one's called Accompanying My Father. When I was 8, living in the suburbs of Philly, PA, going by Maxine Rose Krakovitz at that time, my father purchased a grand piano to put in our living room, which as of yet had no furniture. He was a concert-level violinist himself, who now maitre d'd his own restaurant with live music 3 nights a week. He adored all kinds of music and wanted his daughter to be an accomplished pianist. So, rather than putting the money into home furnishings, he chose to bring in this high sheen, rosewood, fabulous tone Knabe grand piano to our new empty home. I started to, it was like empty except it had a piano. I started to take lessons immediately and practice an hour a day for 10 years. This was actually a memorable period in our family. Mom and Dad had been separated for most of a year, as my mom was wanting to check out another guy. This trial run was short-lived, and although she did get to run with this new lover for a while, in the end, Mom chose to come home and keep our family together. The first thing they did was buy a real house, not an apartment like we had always lived on top of the restaurant. It took all the funds they had, and it was the opening scene of the new life we were beginning in the mid-50s. By the time we got to the mid-60s and into my teens, I was quite the accomplished pianist. My brother Rob was already in college, and it was just me at home. He was going to be able to escape the draft during the Vietnam War, as he was a pre-med student. That gave us all a relief, as already some of our very close friends had been lost in that Asian disaster. Dad had been doing well in the restaurant business though, and things seemed to be thriving for them, with enough money to send Rob to college and offer all of us a fine upper middle class life, driving from Philadelphia to New York often, exposing us to art, musicians, Broadway shows, and lots of opera. The cantor of our synagogue ended up moving to New York when he was picked up by the New York Met to sing in their company. He was a great friend of my dad's, and they used to sing out together when anchored on their boats in the Chesapeake Bay. There was abundance around us, and it seemed as though the entire Jewish community where we lived were enjoying opulence and plenty. What a time to be a teen and feel so taken care of. I look back now, and I'm so grateful I had that experience. So one day, my father gave me a lump of sheet music and said, "Maxie, once you learn this piece, I will play the violin portion, and you will accompany me. We'll do it for the Hanukkah party that all the relatives will be at this December. It's going to be fantastic." The piece was Rondo Capriccioso by Camille Saint-Saëns, and it was a doozy in speed and level of difficulty. But I was game, and I studied and practiced and fantasized about the moment I'd be ready. I had never accompanied my father all these years. I had no idea what that would be like. Would we practice together? Rehearse? He was never home at night. When would it happen? After a few months, probably much sooner than I imagined, Hanukkah came. Today was the day of the party, and Dad and I had never rehearsed. Everybody was there from all sides of the family. The grandmoms and grandpops, all the aunts and uncles, first and second cousins, and extraneous, more removed relatives. We all assembled in the big living room, which was now furnished in upscale style, and all sat prepared to be entertained by Max and Bernie. Well, I guess I was going to know what to do when I needed to know. I trusted that. Dad picked up his violin and began, and soon I jumped in at my spot and off we went. It was a brisk piece, and I could feel my blood beginning to boil up and fill my chest cavity with a thumping and pumping that I had never witnessed in my 15-year life until that moment. I was scurrying to keep up with him, but not at the loss of any quality in my playing. It was my finest moment ever on the piano. It's now that I realize that that was my first experience of passion in my life. There it was, something that I had not ever felt before. What it was to have my face flush with heat and sweat and my blood pounding and my excitement to be alive and in my body, experiencing such a moment with my father standing next to me, driving us along with his bow, wiggling and jiggling to this fantastic piece. All the relatives applauded at the end. And my father looked at me with such pride. This was a moment of us seeing each other that had never before, and quite frankly, never happened again. Now, if my brother Rob was telling his report of that day's big event, he probably slanted via his disdain for me in general, the human being who robbed him of his total focus from my parents when he was 3.5 years old and I was born. That fact slanted everything that happened between Rob and me. It seemed as though he would find any possible disdainful part of whatever I did and withhold his love or slander me so I might not still be the apple of my parents' eyes, and that always seemed and who always seemed to gain their admiration just a little bit more than he did, which really pissed him off for the rest of his life. Or at least it seemed like that. Yes, if Rob were telling this story, it might reflect how absurd Max looked trying to keep up with Dad. I saw him smirk at her at one point just to let us all know that she really wasn't able to pull it off. Who does she think she's fooling here? Not me. She just wants attention on her, whether she's good enough or not. She made a fool of herself even trying, like usual. Yes, all the relatives did smile obligatorily. It kind of made Max feel like she was a star. I could see that made her feel really good. And I guess she deserved it after all. Who would like to give a comment on anything that touched in your soul? I think Dave got his hand up first. Let's hear him, and I'm not gonna look at you.
I gotta hear your name again. What is that?
Maxine Rose Krakovitz. I went through my life with that name. Can you imagine? Can you imagine saying, "Hey man, I met this cool chick, Maxine Rose Krakovitz." Like, what?
That was beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
And Kim, okay.
I have a brother named Rob, and he would have had the exact same
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
And he's old.
I can only take two. Okay, Lily. What, Lily?
Me too, ditto with the brother thing.
There's something about that 3.5 year mark where it's like, hey,
Yeah.
what the fuck, man? This is my story. This is my show here. Anyway, okay. It's really hard for me to pick which one to do next, so I have them just down here so I can be spontaneous. But this is one of my other very favorites. I probably should have spaced them out, but they're all kind of my favorites. This one was, okay, a breath. Get a sip. Okay, good. It's really funny how much it means to me to get laughter. And all my life, I have been a performer. I have been on stage, I sing, I dance, I'm a comedian, I'm a dramatic person. Then I spent 20 years teaching on stage with my husband, my naturopath husband, so I like it even though I'm shaking like a leaf. This one's an Ivy Cowler one, method writing, and the assignment was, I think it's fun to tell you what the assignment was, you can tell where I put myself into it, to create a really strong visual just by the words they're using of where it all is and what's going on. So this is called, I think I'm going to dedicate this piece to Polly, because it's a piece about early childhood wounding. So I think I'll just dedicate this to Polly, who helps us all recognize those wonderful opportunities of patterns that wreak havoc in our lives. Okay. This is called I Don't Matter. We spent the day in and out of who did what to whom, each defending their story as the valid position. Trying to cool things down, we ordered large smoothies at Jamba Juice, so cold that they froze our teeth and made our heads ache. Cars were whizzing by in the Safeway parking lot, and it felt like Maui's version of downtown Manhattan. We sat in one of those super uncomfortable black wrought iron tables with chairs that hurt and make impressions on your butt. It had old sticky yuck on it from other people's dripping chocolate cream drinks. I studied him across the table from me. He wore his usual uniform, a blue bandana to hide his hairless head, bad man sunglasses, and so much heavy jewelry that I wondered, what's it all supposed to replace or substitute in his himness? He had heavy silver and turquoise rings on at least half his fingers. Around his neck he wore a bundle of 4 different necklaces, cords, gemstones, and heavy wooden tikis. His waist held a long-handled heavy knife in a decorated leather pouch on his Indian studded belt with turquoise and scratchy silver contings all over it. You know these kinds of guys. Not you, Sky. As usual, it was impossible to come close to him, as every pocket and nook of his uniform had bejeweled and adorned pouches and thing holders, including his wallet, second knife, and phone. I couldn't figure out what was the motivation for it all. Was it really just that he was an artist and loved adorning himself with his creations? Was it to give an impression of he was a cool guy? Was he cool? Was I missing something? Was I being too critical? All of a sudden, I couldn't stand it anymore. I became rash. I stood up, grabbed my bags, and stomped away from the unpleasant, nobody's going to win this conversation encounter. I reached my limit of hearing excuses for inconsiderate, selfish behavior that touches my core wound of feeling like I don't matter. That my feelings don't matter. That who I am doesn't matter. I usually warn men that my father and brother both treated me the same way that triggers that feeling. That the pain of that entire part of my early life has never gone away. And that if you come too close to it or touch it in any way, it will bite you. Honestly, it's shocking that I'm not able to be in the moment and simply ask you nicely if you wouldn't mind being more respectful and sensitive to me in the future. Something serious gets triggered when I feel forgotten or passed over for something that looks like I'm far less important than what they chose. It's so ancient, so embedded, so painful. There's no making sense of it or maturely responding like the evolved, wise woman I generally consider myself to be. Some wild animal takes over, and all semblance of responding from a place of an aware, awake woman vanishes. I'm gonna look, Loic, you'll be the caller upon. I'm gonna look for the next piece, and Loic's gonna pick some people till I find it to say, what did you like about that piece, what resonated for you? And Loic's gonna call upon people.
So, what I loved about that piece is how we've been conditioned to believe that our life experience is because there's something fucked up about us.
You mean there's not?
There's not. The fact is, the world has become insensitive. And what used to be we is me. And that's nothing wrong with us.
Thank you. I know that, and nevertheless, these triggers arise, and it's something to deal with them. One more short one from yes.
Janine.
Janine, right.
I love the detail
Ah.
about his belt and his knives and the thing and
You
the
could
holder
feel
and
it?
the this and the that. It totally was there. It was gorgeous detail. Thank you.
Wonderful. Wonderful. By the way, I should say that Paul's going to help me put all of my writings into a book. All of these wonderful phantasmagorias. Okay, one quickie from Amora.
I had no idea you were such a great comedian. Did you ever do stand-up?
I'm not stand-up, but in my first years on stage, I was like, my first role was Guys and Dolls. I was, I love you, but you want to pay. All right, we're moving on here. Okay, Loic, you tell me when you're ready.
Okay.
This piece, every year at my birthday, I write a piece that reflects what's going on in me now. This is one of my favorite, deeper, non-story pieces. I love this piece. If I only have a little bit of time with people, I usually choose this one if I don't want to make them laugh. Okay, let's have a sip of water. Everybody doing okay? Yeah. Okay, we're doing some Osho good medicine of laughter here. Okay, this is called Now's Desire. I am moved to imagine life without compromise, without excuse for anything less than excellence. A life brimming with leading edge, genuine presence. Deliberate choosing to release holding of any kind. Letting go of attachment to preferences for any particular outcome. Full acceptance, a no lack way of seeing. Surrounding myself with those who are willing and capable of dancing such a dance excites my innermost being. Love what you love. Be as you are, accepting what comes with that. Irrelevant whether we agree or not. By my effect on them, their effect on me, we carry on in authentic presence, not needing any alteration so that we can be comfortable. Diving into high intensity, transparency, and trust. Discomfort now arises as a gift. What is at the core of this disturbance? Accelerated expansion? Fascination versus defense? How powerful. Intersecting with others, willing to play with so much exposure, nothing to protect, full view of another's matrix of being. Their reactions welcomed and even revered as a pathway to liberation, rather than the guarded, hidden truths, despite facing fears that their exposure might cause love to be taken away. In we go, despite that. Allured in by the privilege to be privy to another's sacred sanctum of privacy, venturing into far reaches of human exposure, free of protection, the precious gift of another's unaltered inner world is revealed. Far more enticing than sensuality, companionship, partnership, conditioned desires, we opt up instead for the highly electric frequency of the epitome of intimacy, the real us. Nothing to strategize for future comfort. We rest confidently. No defense offered in favor of being known that your truest nature is all I would ever wish to know of you, your realest you. As we entrain to interact and communicate with mastery, we overcome our conditioned responses and manipulations generally engaged to cover up our human frailties. Say it like it is. Give it to me straight, just as you are, just as you feel. No adulteration. We now reach into the sacred ground of true relating, caring, listening, heart-storming to optimize our highest possible outcomes. The longing for this particular out of this world frequency is so captivating, so compelling, that now nothing less will satisfy. I stand for this being possible. I know it is. We choose this simple field of agreement. This is our path. We willingly walk through fire as we disintegrate the old guarded, saran-wrapped covered-ups of our natural beings. Us, as original human art, is now accessible. Nothing to fight, defend, or be right about. This is my highest desire now, to rise above conditioned human behavior between friends, man and woman, family, and all experience, releasing prior propensities to imagine that judgment and criticism ensure our comfort and safety. We lift up, embracing a world that is colorful and unpredictable, upheld by unconditional love and acceptance. The miracle of love now pervades all thoughts and actions, responses to people, things, and experiences. Nothing else draws us in. Merged in unparalleled connection with God in every being and each moment's offered opportunity, old games fade away, and the sacred treasure of unbridled presence is the holy space so longed for and now known. Thank you. And now let's have some people who haven't shared a comment yet say anything about how that piece touched you or something you noticed.
Ollie?
The gift you've always brought, the gift that you continue to offer through that amazing piece is my highest value for the person, which is authenticity. And you have revealed it, you offer it over and over, no matter what the reception or lack of reception is. You are there with it, and bless you, darling.
Yes.
Bless
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. Okay, let's see, page. Okay.
I love unbridled presence. That is just a great summation of that piece.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, and it's brilliant. Your writing is blowing my mind.
Really?
Yes,
Yeah,
totally.
right.
Me too.
Totally.
You know, I just recently read stuff to Loic and his family. This is my son, by the way, Loic. How is it I've never heard you read anything ever? And so now I'm like, now everywhere I go, I went to True North, I went to Ojai, I was giving recitals everywhere that I went. People were just like, it was really fun.
All
Do you
right.
want to take another question?
One more comment. Oh yes, Margie.
And you have the courage and the willingness to enter that state.
Thank you.
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. Okay, it's so hard to choose what to do next, but I'm trying to go between deep and funny and whatever. They're all so good, it doesn't matter for me. I'm not going to get any notes on me about being modest. They're not going to, no. Okay. This one I just discovered last week. I had forgotten all about it. It's another Ivy Keller one that I can't remember what the assignment was, but it's called Heaven on Earth. God, I was hungry. I wanted him to get here with the Chinese food. Was feeling edgy, wondering if I was using him. I can do that. I can use. I'm a user. I use all kinds of things, including men. I use Advil, sugar, rich food, ganja, not alcohol, thank God, and not pain meds. I use sleep to hide. God, I love to sleep. And nap, and go into transcendent hypnotic states. I've been hiding out wherever I can, hiding from pain, hiding from being alone. Soon enough, we lavished our mouths with succulent wonton soup and crispy egg rolls. Smelled like hot mustard and tasted like Chinatown. After, we went to watch an amazing sunset. No wind, calm, easy on our bodies. There were purple and mauve big puffy clouds heading all the way from Molokini up to Ulupalakua and all over the West Maui's too. It was one of those nights where the entire panorama was like those classic Hawaiian calendar shots. Minutes before it would set behind Lanai, the pinks and oranges were swirling around the cosmic cloudy starship topping of the island. Looked like Mount Shasta with its infamous flying saucer headdress. I was leaning back on the hot black volcanic rocks, massaging and warming my shoulders and spine. I felt a flow of kindness in that moment with him. Our toes were playing together in the warm sand, going up and down with each other's big toe bones, then circling around the whole foot. It was a magical moment of loving energy that opened my heart vantage point. Then it happened. He said, "We live in heaven on earth." Just that simple cliche I've heard a million times before, all at once, a drug-induced state contained in those words moved through my entire psyche and something clicked. I was blasted into an aha, get, what if I chose to truly live my moments, hours, and days with that as my overriding reality? I could be happy. I could be content. I could produce happiness from inside my own generator. I could choose to see each moment as heaven on earth. I was capable of that. I wanted to do that. To cut the cord of my suffering train and shift my vehicle onto a new track of light. I felt immediately struck and ready, like I wouldn't survive one more moment in the old realms of misery, discouragement, hopelessness, and disgust. I grokked the possibility. I was capable of this new lease on life. Whatever my dark night of the soul had been feeding on for the last few months got overridden by this glimpse of liberation. As overly simplified as it sounded, it didn't matter. Life had just sent this messenger to shoot this arrow into my heart, and it landed just where it was supposed to, in fertile soil, without fanfare, bells or whistles. My shell of darkness was blasted open, and something emerged that filled and lifted me. How much fun I'm having reading today. It is so good. Oh, this is a good one.
You're doing amazing.
Yeah? Okay, good. By the way, with Cy Safransky, and then we'll hear somebody, he also taught us how to read. He gave us an example of someone just reading their story and someone performing their story. And that was the change for me in becoming a writer-performer. Who wanted to say something?
I wanted to say, we can't tell you how much fun we're having.
Oh,
Yes, Rob.
thank you. Thank you so much. One more quickie.
Anybody?
Anything that touched from anyone? What was that story about again? Oh, that was about, the heaven on earth.
Yeah.
Yeah, Grace, I'm just blown away. just so deeply touched by what you're sharing, and where has this been all these years? And I hear your stories, and you tell me, what an amazing life you had, and I'm just so deeply touched. So thank you so much for sharing this.
Thank you so much, Michael. I really needed to do this today. I needed to be known for something that nobody knew anything about me, so thank you. Okay, I love this one. This is a Maui story because it takes place on Little Beach. Okay. Me, her, and him. Oh my God, this was my worst case scenario of wanting to hook up with a girlfriend's prior boyfriend. But wow, what a perfect example of being super careful not to trust what a man says about a prior girlfriend when he's hot for me. And there was sure no doubt in his eyes how hot I was for him. What a hunk. Yikes. I saw him body surfing at Little Beach one morning and recognized him as Jenna's old guy. I was riveted on watching him maneuver in and out of the waves. I made my way down to the shore. As soon as I saw him get out, I felt as if a magnet was pulling me. It was fun and invigorating chat with mucho energy flowing. I could feel the mutual attraction. Later, he walked over to talk with me some more. We made a strong intention to hook up another time. I got his number into my phone so I could have access to being the caller. Rather than the callee, of course. I saw him again the next week. I hadn't called or texted. I was actually too busy checking out some other guys to make room for him. Often the case. The prior day I had been doing a nice, long, juicy yoga session that I could feel that he was watching me perform. Later, I slinked on over to where he was perched on the jetty at the far end of Little Beach. We talked, we lied down together. I cuddled up to him. We had one peck and talked about how cool it would be to hook up at the Yuba River in the summertime. I wrote to Jenna and asked her to tell me her bottom line truth about her current status with him and how she felt about me spending time with him. She said all systems go and he's a free man. However, last night she came over to my house and spilled the beans about her still being attached to him and how he's really her soulmate and that she covered all that up to act like it was all good to convince herself that she was done. Now, he was planning to see both of us back to back at the Yuba River in July, and she was flipping out. I made a quick choice to back out gracefully and tell her she had my full support to do what she needed. Yes, take all the time you need. Please know I have zero attachment to being with him, despite how much I was looking forward, mostly just to having some great sex with him. Then she delivered the gold. She chose to relay a clusterfuck of awful stories about him, at least in her humble opinion. Then, no matter what her motivation was, I realized I had been spared once again from a man that was not going to be catering to the goddess. Fun, huh? Okay, who's got a fun let's have a comment on any woman who's ever gotten mixed up with a guy who wasn't telling her the truth about how free he really was. Anybody ever have that happen?
Oh, yeah.
Who's got a comment? Or any comment you want to make?
Yeah, I married, not this one. Not this one, but another one. That was dumb.
I just want to say I add a little under the title of today's presentations and sharings. I want to add gracefully.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Woo. Gracefully. Whew. boy, I am having a lot of fun. I mean, I feel like somebody injected me with cocaine, but it's not the case. But okay, this one I recently discovered also in the armamentarium of my one folder that says writing pieces. And it came up because I was visiting Loic, my wonderful son, and I was touched by a mother's love for her son, and what it feels like when a mother loves a son. And so this is a story. It's called "Give 'Em a Break." No, he's never heard this one. I told him that that I was touched. I told him I was editing it. Okay, here we go. Sip. Are you having as much fun as me?
Yes.
Good entertainment? Okay, here we go. A youngish 30-something guy wanting a clean start in life showed up with his soft underbelly showing and his sweet, positive energy mom by his side with a full envelope of money for the deal. He had undergone some troubles lately, he said, and my little bachelor pad condo without even a real kitchen or laundry had him stoked and reaching to show his best. I found out he was 38, like my own son. God, I love my son. He's so in a league of his own consciousness. I can't take all the credit, but I love taking some. And when I do, I feel my pride swelling up in my chest. Yes, fortunate he had money in his pocket. It stirred me remembering all the times in my younger life my mom showed up and paid, signed, promised, and guaranteed my not-so-guaranteeable life to someone needing insurance in order to give me what I wanted. I hated asking his mom that day, and it tore on my chest to have to. I could feel my heartstrings being pulled as a place inside of my gut jumped at the chance of seeing myself as a good person, overlooking the unshaven face, work clothes effect on my responsiveness. I liked seeing myself as generous and kind, for caring more, for giving this fellow a chance despite possible risks. Sure, I called his references and it sounded okay, but I knew that not everyone would have chosen him. I loved choosing him. It was about choosing me, choosing some version of prickly unshaven in me, to show God I was one of his emissaries, helping the downtrodden. I chose not to ask about what kind of troubles he had, and quickly emphasized how I sure knew about troubles myself and had dug myself out of many. Nevertheless, it felt somehow illicit to me. The room was a mess, as the tenant currently living there had not cleaned it. I felt disgust at the dirty, unswept floors and embarrassed, as if it was about me, ashamed at someone else's lack of caring. The young man looked so encouraged, putting his absolute best foot forward. For a moment, I thought he would have gladly carried me down the 4 flights of steps or anything that would win his desired new home he so desperately needed to secure a new track from his prior unsavory, whatever it was that his mom intimated was the trouble. In the end, Mom shelled out the required down payment money, all in crisp hundreds, and the deal was done. I was filled with a heart-fueled buzz from knowing I gave someone a break, someone who needed it, like I used to need it. The essential mom in me could have lifted off the ground from an overwhelming sense of having done the right thing, of giving this prickly, unshaven, good-natured guy the break he needed.